Hey there everybody, this has been a long time, hasn't it? This is Evan Rogers with Evan's Easy Japanese. Today, I want to start from kind of the beginning. We're going to talk about basic Japanese sentence structure. Number one, so there's going to be a few more videos. What do all these weird words mean? When we're talking language, we have a lot of weird words, and I figured I'd go over some of them because a lot of people who are new to the language, or, kids, teenagers, high school students, might not know what the heck these words are. Lord knows I was never really taught subjects and predicates and all those fancy words in school when I was young. Well, maybe subject, but never knew what the heck a predicate was, that's for sure. Let's check it out. Basic linguistics terms, let's keep it simple for now. We're going to go over sentences, clauses, nouns, verbs, subjects, predicates, and objects. And with objects, we're going to talk a little bit about complements as well, and that's COMPLEMENTS. Quick note. Oh, I didn't put a random cool picture. I should put a random cool picture there. Oh well, next time maybe. If you want to add a drawing here, send me one from my website, and you'll be able to get your own picture inside my notes. Quick note, this is aimed towards the beginners, so we're going to be using some words that are more familiar to English speakers, such as predicates, nouns, etc., 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 like that. And we're going to try to avoid the entire linguistics aspect of everything. When we get into the nitty-gritty, we're going to be changing our terms later, but you guys are probably just fresh learners of a language, so might as well not talk about ad nominal or like quotative nominals and things like that. Let's just stick with nouns, verbs, and stuff like that. That's what I'm going for with this video. Don't get a stick up your bum if it's not 100,000,000% accurate. We're laying the groundwork. The groundwork can be a little bit shaky to make it easier. Alright, so we're basically talking about what a noun is right now. Nouns. Hopefully you learned about this when you were in grade school, but if not, that's understandable. Maybe you still are in grade school. Hi! Basic linguistic term is a noun. A noun, generally, there's a few weird things in the future. Or sorry, when you get really deep into languages. A noun is generally a word that symbolizes a person, a place, a thing, or an idea. That sounds weird, but go with me. Like a dog, that's a thing, as much as you might like a dog. Unfortunately, it's considered a thing. Evan, I could be a thing too, but, it's kind of a person. Sort of. Japanese. Japanese isn't a person. Well, you could say a Japanese person, like he is Japanese, he is a Japanese. Strangely enough, Japanese could be a person. It can't be a place. It's not really a thing. Like, I can't pick up a Japanese person I can. But it's generally considered an idea. Like, it's one of those things that you can't touch. So it's an idea. Japan is a place. It could even be a thing. Like, if you were to say, like, comet struck Japan, it would be a thing. It's definitely a place. In that, a comet strikes Japan. That's where it was located. Detroit is definitely a place. Physics, not really a person, not really a place. It is kind of a thing, but it's also kind of like an idea, right? Physics is a set of ideas. If you drop things, it'll fall, etc., etc., etc. Those are all underlying or parts of physics. The laws of thermodynamics, that's definitely an idea. It takes someone to say, if you hold the volume of a container constant and increase the amount of air that goes inside of it, then both the pressure and the temperature will go up. PV equals nRT, one of my favorite equations. Anyway, the laws of thermodynamics, the laws of gravitation, Albert Einstein's theory of gravity, these are all ideas. They're not places. They're not, you can kind of think that they're things, but they're very, 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 very abstract things. They're not things you can touch. Love, again, do you love me? What is love? Don't hurt me. What is love, It's not a person, unless you want to personify love as a person in, like, a fantasy novel. It's not really a place, unless there's a city I don't know about that's called love. It's a thing or an idea. Mostly an idea. Could be a thing. I don't know if I've ever touched a love before. Santa Claus. Now, this one's tricky because some people don't believe he exists. So, for people who don't believe in Santa Claus, he's an idea. For those of you who do think he's real, he's a person. And for some of you who think he's real, you might think he's an idea. That's an interesting thing. The word noun is a noun. It identifies things. It identifies a word. Like, I can see that this word is a noun. I can put a noun in different locations in a sentence. So a noun is a thing. The word verb, ironically, is a noun because it identifies an idea. The word verb identifies words that are not that show action, but the word verb identifies those things, and thus it is a noun. A little bit tricky. If you stew on it for a little while, maybe, drink a bunch of water, take a nice nap, and then come back to it, you'll get it. It's verbs in general, which we'll get to next, are words that show action. However, the name that we give to that set of words is a noun. If we group them as a set and we treat them as a thing that we can talk about, it becomes a noun. So that's interesting that humans do this with our brains. We take a bunch of things like run and jump and drink and was eating, and we throw them all together in a group, and then we give a name to that group, and that name becomes a noun. In fact, the word noun kind of actually means name. Hopefully you can see the connection: noun, name, noun, name. They have the same origin. So if we name something, generally that thing becomes a noun. Okay, let's go on to verbs. Like I said earlier, a verb is basically something that shows an action. So we get a few verbs down here: run, dance, drink, barf, because I like funny words. Ate. I did eat, I ate. That would be a verb. I hung, my clothing out to dry. For any of you out there who's disgusting and curious, the word, if you were to kill somebody via hanging them, the past tense would be hanged. So that's a little trick for you. Don't kill people, please. However, in English, we have other words that are verbs that don't look like they're actions. For example, 1 + 1 is 4, or is 2, whatever, I got it wrong. It's not 4, how about that? I am Evan. They are people. We were students. These are aka copulas. We'll talk about copulas in more depth. Basically what we're saying is X and Y are together in some way, shape, or form. They're the same thing. Those are copulas. We call them, when you're learning English, we generally call them be verbs because is, am, are, were, was, all those things are also the same thing as I will be. So be is the actual base of all those words. Anyway, they're called base verbs. They don't really show an action. They connect things together, and thus in English, they're verbs, but as we're going to see in the future, they're not so much a verb in Japanese. So guess what? Japanese, different language than English. You're going to be learning how to communicate using completely different manifestations of your brain in a weird way. Yeah. So that'll be fun. So you're going to learn how to think completely differently about the most basic thing you've ever done in your life: speak. Well, maybe not the most basic. I mean, sleeping was probably one of the first things you learned how to do. Okay, so now that we've identified different types of words, we've talked about nouns and verbs, let's talk about things that exist when we put these words together. We have what's called the subject. A subject in a sentence or in a clause is the thing that does the verb or is something. If we use a be verb in English, like I am Evan, then the thing that is Evan is I. Well, I. So that usually in English, subjects come first. That's usually one of the first nouns that you see in a sentence. So it's the thing that does something or the thing that is described. It's almost always a noun. Then we have predicates. Everything that isn't part of the subject, whatever the subject, everything that isn't part of the subject is the predicate. So that's basically the rule. Everything, all of the words that encompass the thing that does something is the subject, and all of the stuff that thing does or is the predicates. Okay, so for example, if we make the sentence, the man with the big shiny red hat punches Nazis. So the man with the big shiny red hat, that's all kind of like one idea. That's, the big shiny red hat guy that with the big red shiny hat, that's describing the man, and that's the subject. So the man is the subject, but all of those words sort of are the same thing, so all of that's the subject. Now everything that's beyond the man with the big shiny red hat punches a Nazi. That's the predicate. That's what the man with the big shiny red hat does. He punches a Nazi. Or we could say something like, the dog is cute. Very simple. The dog. Now, this is a subject. And what is the dog? Is cute. Let's do something a little bit more complicated. The dog eats chicken every Friday and then destroys nations. So we have the dog is the subject because he does everything that comes after the dog is actually what the dog does. So whatever the subject does or is the predicate. Okay? Almost always has a verb. Okay? Great. Awesome. Japanese rules are a little bit different, but you know we're introducing ideas for you to stew on until we get to the more nitty gritty. Now let's talk about clauses and sentences. We're not talking about Santa Clauses. We're talking about grammatical clause. A clause is any time that we have both a subject and a predicate. That's when we have a clause. Anytime that we have a thing that does something or is something, and the thing that it does or the thing that it is listed at the same time, it's a clause. Every sentence has at least one clause in it. Some sentences have more than one clause. Unfortunately, for people who try to define things, a sentence does not have a very good definition because it's a complete idea. But that, I mean, what does that even mean? I mean, isn't monkey a complete idea? But a monkey isn't a sentence. Basically, what a sentence is when you want to communicate a subject does something or is something, but you might need more than one clause to accomplish it. Every sentence has at least one clause in it, but not every clause is a sentence. So, for example, I gave us the sentence, the dog that I just met peed on my shoe because he thought the shoe was his. Okay, so the actual sentence is, the dog peed on my shoe. That's the actual main idea. The actual sentence is the entire thing. The dog that I just met peed on my shoe because he thought the shoe was his. That's the actual sentence. But let's look at all of the different clauses we have. First, let's identify the subject. So we have the dog, and what did it do? It peed. But let's describe the dog. The dog was the dog that I just met. I met the dog, right? So I met the dog. The dog peed on my shoe. And then if we go further, we have the word because, which is a conjunction. What's your function? He thought. So the dog, he thought. So we have a subject that does a verb. He thought something. And then what did he think? He thought that the shoe was his. So we have actually 4 subjects. The dog did something, I did something, he did something, and the shoe was something. So that would be a be verb sentence. Okay, so all of the subjects in the sentence are bolded. It's kind of hard to see, but you can kind of see the dog is bold, I is bold, he is bold, and the shoe is bold. And then all of the verbs in the sentence are underlined. So I met. Met is underlined. So so we have a subject and a verb. They come together. We have dog and peed. They come together. And then he thought. So thought is underlined because that's the verb of he. And the shoe was his. The shoe was. So the shoe was. I don't know why that's tripping me up. The shoe, bolded, was. He thought. I met. And the dog peed. So as you can see, I even colored where the sentences come together, or where the different clauses are. The dog peed on my shoe. Which dog? The dog that I just met. The word that might not necessarily be part of that, but, you know, we're just going to leave it there. Then why did he do it? Because he thought, what did he think? He thought the shoe was his. Okay, so we have 4 clauses. The dog peed, I met, he thought the shoe was. So we have 4 clauses, each completely independent. We could, the dog peed on the shoe, on my shoe. I just met the dog. He peed on my shoe because he thought the shoe was his. Or we could just not even get rid of because. He thought the shoe was his. The shoe was his. You see, each one of those little clauses could be its own sentence, but we kind of sound like a 4th grader. This morning, I woke up. I ate breakfast. I went to school. I learned something else. Then I came home. You know, you sound like no offense to young people, but that's very low-level communication. the dog that I just met peed on my shoe because he thought the shoe was his. I mean, that's something you're going to get from a middle school, high schooler. Much less likely from a first or second grader, or maybe, even a fourth grader. Okay, so this is all one sentence. Because it's kind of a complete idea. The dog did something, and I'm giving you a reason why I think he did that. And each one of these little things is a clause. Dog peed, I met, he thought, shoe was. That's what a clause is. That's what a sentence is. That's how they're different. You can see how it's similar, but they're a little bit different because we can put a bunch of clauses into one sentence. This clauses was not something I ever learned in grade school, unfortunately. But it's important when we start learning Japanese to identify clauses. Okay, last thing we're going to talk about is objects, if I'm not mistaken. In objects, we have first off, objects, I say they're the thing that gets verbed, and that's generally true. That's actually more of a definition for the direct object. Basically, the object is everything pertaining to the verb that isn't the subject. So, like, if I eat cake, I am the subject because I'm the one who does the eating. And what is the eating applying to? It's applying to the cake, right? So I eat. What do I eat? I eat the cake. Or how about I say this? I bought my dad a cake. So I is the one who did something. What did I do? I went to the store with some money and I bought something. What did I buy? I bought a cake. Whom did I buy it for? I bought my dad a cake. So my dad. That has one subject, I. The verb is ate. There's two objects. There's the direct object, the thing that I bought, and there is the indirect object, my dad. He is the one for whom I bought, or to whom I am going to give it to. That's an indirect object. So everything that's all the nouns basically that aren't the subject that the verb applies to are objects. So, for example, I drew my father a picture of a cat on a sheet of paper for my father. I don't even need this for my father. That's repetitive. I'm a bozo. Imagine I didn't write for my father, okay? So, I drew my father. So, my father is an object. I'm the one who did it. What did I do? I drew my father is who I'm going to be giving it to. I drew a picture, and I drew it for my father. I kind of redundified myself. Being redundant is a very redundant thing to do. I drew a picture of a cat. So you see how there's the word cat and it has the word of. So this is an object of preposition. You probably didn't learn that, but of is a preposition and the object of this of is cat. On a sheet. So sheet, on is another preposition and we're talking about a sheet. Where did I draw? I drew on. What did I draw on? I drew on a sheet. What kind of a sheet? Of, a preposition with paper following it. These are all objects. So you see, this is the subject. He's not an object. Drew is what I did. It's the verb. Then all of these other nouns, and then even the repetitive one, and that's completely unnecessary, are objects. So picture is an object, cat is an object, sheet is an object, paper is an object, and both of these fathers, one of them being unnecessary, is also an object. Father, indirect object. This is the indirect object. Sorry, if it's over here, it's an object of preposition. In fact, I added it over here on accident. Picture is the direct object. That's the thing that I drew. What did I draw? I drew a picture. Then all of these other things are describing the picture. A picture of a cat. A picture on a sheet of paper. A picture for my father. And then actually, paper here is modifying sheet. So what kind of a sheet? A sheet of paper. I could have drawn on a sheet of metal. I could have drawn on a sheet of, I don't know, silk. Something like that. So paper is modifying sheet. All these other guys are modifying the picture. Except for my father. My father is the indirect object, and he is modifying, telling us to whom I will do the drawing for. To be totally honest, all you need to get out of this lesson is that objects are a thing, and they're not the subject. Okay? Great. That'd be the lesson. I would like to encourage you to go to the website, Evan's Easy Japanese. It'll have all of the different ways to contact me. So if you ever want to get in touch with me, it has other ways of, I don't know if you want to send me your homework so I can make a video about it. And also, if you go to Twitter and Facebook, I post daily Skyrim lessons where I have a single screenshot of Skyrim with the Japanese on it, and I translate it with a bunch of Quizlet decks. On Quizlet, I have a bunch of decks of vocab that you can check out. And yeah, that's about it. Hey, feel free to what do you call it? Upvote, thumbs up this video if you liked it. Go ahead and share it with all your friends so I get more listeners and viewers and all that sort of stuff. Oh, and another thing, on the website, there are daily email lessons. I'm beginning something where you can go and sign up for daily lessons where they'll have a video like this, followed by upwards of 15, 16 daily emails sent to your email address that are all about a video or a subject. Okay? So it's a great way to make sure you don't forget to study, because Lord knows you're like, I'm going to study, then you're playing video games all day. Well, if you just check your email, you'll see an email from me. And you'll be like, oh yeah, I should probably study Japanese for, this 10 minutes a day. Okay, hey, you guys have yourself a great day. Peace out.